Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and happy as always to be alongside Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Oh, Darcy, it's always a delight to be here with you. I have to say it's nice to see you in person as well. It's not often we get to do that these days.
True.
Look, it's a human. It's such a rarity.
Good to catch up with anyone outside your house, Joe.
It's true, but I have to say I'm a bit over the virtual connection. It gets really tiring connecting with people on the screen. And the other thing I'm really over is what to make for dinner. Don't you think it's just been so much harder during lockdown to work out what to make? So, you know, you work through that cycle of food, whether it's pasta, tacos, stir-fry, chicken and salad, and then it's back again. And I stand in the kitchen going, why? Why does she have to be fed every day, this child of mine?
So I don't think people who live in South Australia or Western Australia or Queensland, probably even New South Wales, can relate to the extended time. You know, Melbourne has been the most lockdown city in the world, and I'm with you. There's 6 that live in our house, 7 if you include Dennis and Doc. So I've got to the point where you might have something that you really want. You try and hide that bit of food somewhere, and one of the kids will find it. I guarantee you, they are just consuming like you wouldn't believe because you're just sitting there around each other the whole time. It's extraordinary.
That's true.
Well, one thing I have no trouble with, Joe, is sleeping. And although I've heard people say that's been difficult for them, I don't know. I like to think I've got a clear conscience, Joe, but frustratingly so, I can sleep anywhere at any time.
All right, you shouldn't say that to people who don't sleep well, like me, because it makes us hate you. Anyway, some could say that it has something to do with the full moon, because the increase in nighttime light suppresses melatonin, which affects sleep. Maybe that's why we're not sleeping well.
I didn't know that you weren't a great sleeper.
Shocking
Really?
sleeper, yeah.
Jeez, that's incredible. Well, there's no scientific evidence to prove that about the moon. There was a study of 3 separate communities in South America that showed they all followed the same sleep pattern leading up to a full moon. So 3 to 5 nights before the full moon, people went to bed a lot later and got a lot less sleep.
Well, the next full moon is on October 20, so you can put it to the test and ask, did you know that the full moons all have names? And this coming one is called the full hunter's moon or the blood moon, which gives you an idea about the colour that we're going to see, I guess.
Didn't know that at all. There's some great apps as well if you're into checking out the phases of the moon. The Lunar Watch is the one, and Moon for iOS. And they also show where the moon is located at any given time.
I have spent some time down the app rabbit hole myself, Tass, and some of them I'm like, I get it. I know why they made this one. Like Run P, it's for when you need to go to the loo at the cinema, right? It's so great. It tells you the perfect time to go and gives you a breakdown of what you've missed when you get back. I need the same for when I fall asleep in the cinema. That's what I need. And then you've got apps that let you milk a virtual cow and shave virtual hairs. Not on board that one.
Wow, some of the best apps are the ones that can make big changes to people's lives. We've talked about Quit Buddy before, and that monitors the number of days ex-smokers have gone without lighting up, as well as the money they save, which is a good thing.
And one relatively new app is on a mission to combat the growing problem of type 2 diabetes in this country. 1.2 million Australians have the disease, with anywhere up to 500,000 more undiagnosed or at risk if they don't do something about it.
And Joe, someone I've got to know really well through the world of AFL football is Dr. Peter Bruckner. He's a renowned sports medicine expert who found himself on the wrong side of the diabetes diagnosis some time back. And Pete is now aiming to defeat diabetes 1 carb at a time. So how big an issue is type 2 diabetes in Australia?
I think it's the biggest single health issue that we have. It's the major cause of blindness, the major cause of kidney disease, the major cause of cardiovascular disease, the major cause of amputations. Unfortunately, it's something that, you often feel okay, until you're a fair way down the track. So it's something people need to get tested regularly to make sure that their blood sugar levels are okay.
Dr. Peter Bruckner is speaking not just as a medical professional, but from personal experience.
My background is in sports medicine, and I was actually in England working at the Liverpool Football Club 10 years ago. And if you'd asked me then, was I healthy, I'd have said, yeah, I'm pretty healthy. But the reality was that I was overweight, significantly overweight, like a lot of middle-aged men. I'd put on, half a kilogram a year probably for 30 years, and in retrospect, I was clearly pre-diabetic. I wasn't quite diabetic, but I had a thing called a fatty liver, which is a sort of pre-diabetes thing. I had high insulin levels, high triglyceride levels, and as I said, I was very, very overweight. But yet, I'd been on this supposedly right diet, low fat, and I exercised regularly and so on, and yet I kept putting on weight and getting more and more unwell. And I started to hear a few whispers that there were people challenging the idea that fat was the enemy and suggesting that maybe it was sugar and starches and carbohydrates that were the enemy. And so I started reading, and the more I read, the more I thought, oh, gee, you know, this is interesting. And I thought, OK, time for an experiment. So I decided I'd have a crack myself at going on a what we call a low-carb, sort of healthy fat, healthy protein diet. And in 3 months, I lost 13 kilograms of weight. All my metabolic problems disappeared. My fatty liver that I'd had for 10 years completely normalised. Triglyceride levels, everything went back to normal. But more importantly, I just felt so good.
Peter's transformation supports a growing body of evidence that by reducing our intake of carbohydrates, we can not only prevent type 2 diabetes, but can even put the disease into remission.
There are a number of programs, the one in the UK and the one in the US, that's been very successful with remission rates of greater than 50%. Now, this is for a disease that we're told is, you know, there's no cure. This is a chronic, progressive disease. So I spent last year with a couple of colleagues putting an app together, and in that app, you've got all the information you need to tackle your type 2 diabetes.
One of the first people to sign up to the Defeat Diabetes app was Victoria's Michael Footer, who was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes 6 years ago.
Well, I originally got told that diabetes, and their words were, will affect your eyesight, affect your feet, affect the nerve endings in your body. So I was a bit shocked because I was still playing sport. I was still fit and active. I still played soccer. I still walked everywhere. I was using swimming pools and all that. I didn't have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, or most of the other things that are attributed with type 2. So I was sort of baffled.
Although Michael's lifestyle was healthy, like many Australians, his diet was high in two categories of carb, sugars and starches.
Pretty much all processed foods have sugar in them.
Yeah.
You know, so things that we always thought, I always thought were healthy, like fruit yogurt or muesli or a muesli bar, or, you know, all these sort of things. Breakfast cereal. Well, you know, I call them, you know, cereal flavoured sugars. You know, they're not breakfast cereal, but they're brilliantly marketed and they taste good and they're cheap. So sugar is the first thing. But just as important as sugar is starches. Okay, so we're talking rice, pasta, potato, those sort of things. And basically what a starch is just a whole bunch of sugar molecules stuck together. So it's absorbed from the gut into the blood as glucose. So sugar exactly the same as if you were having sugar. So that's where I think we've gone wrong. People sort of get the sugar thing, but they don't understand that starches are basically sugars.
Having spent years on a high-carb diet, Michael found that it took some time for his body to adjust to the Defeat Diabetes program.
I would say at the end of the second week, I felt awful. Yes, my sleeping had improved and I wasn't as tired, but internally I just felt something wasn't right. I was drained, and I sent a message through to Defeat Diabetes, which they answered quick and said, yes, it's perfectly normal, just struggle through it. And it's what you have to do. You've got to resist the temptation to pick up a sandwich. When I reached the other side, or when I pushed through all the nausea and everything else, it virtually changed overnight. I couldn't believe it, and I really did feel on top of the world.
People with an average glycated hemoglobin percentage of 6.5 are considered diabetic. Within 6 months of going on the program, Michael has reduced his average from 8.8% to 5.1%.
In reality, I've put diabetes into reverse, and it's controlled mainly with diet. My doctor is amazed with what I've managed to do. He read the last report and said, that's fantastic.
Michael is far from alone. 62% of the program's early participants have successfully reversed their diabetes, including South Australian GP Dr. Ian McIntyre.
There's really no bad part to it. There's no downside. See, if you're taking medication, there are always side effects from it. You can be tired, you can be constipated, you can have sleep disturbances. There's all sorts of things that you can have. But with this program, my blood tests have come right back to the point at which I'm now being considered for reduction in my medication, which I find really exciting.
what we're doing is giving people hope. Because at the moment, if you go to your doctor and he says, oh, look, I'm sorry, you've got type 2 diabetes, and you say, well, what can I do? And they'll say, well, there's no hope for you. It's just got to try and control the symptoms. Whereas we're saying to people, with plenty of evidence to back it up, there is hope.
Really enjoyed catching up with Dr. Peter Buckner-Jones. Loved him talking about food as medicine, having been a doctor all his life. He's really got a passion for it. Having said that, though, I love carbs. Very hard to give up carbs. What about you?
Oh, they're the ultimate comfort food, aren't they? Having said that, I don't really eat them very much. I try to avoid them, have done for about 20 years now, and I feel better when I don't eat them. But, gee, a big bowl of pasta, nothing better than a big bowl of pasta.
The Italians got it right, didn't they?
Yeah.
All those years ago.
Yeah.
Defeat Diabetes is a great cause. Details on how you can get involved are on our website. Jo, as a comedian, you know firsthand the power of making people laugh.
I suppose I do. It is a really joyous thing to be able to make people laugh. You don't have to be on stage to do that, though. I get to do this with you every week.
And you do make me laugh every single week. I always found having that on your business card as being slightly challenging, isn't it? The idea that you can make people laugh at will. Challenging?
Well, I mean, I don't sort of do stand-up anymore, so I still call myself a comedian. Maybe I don't have the right to do that so much. But I have the same philosophy everywhere I go, which is to make people laugh, yes.
Well, it is a great skill that you've got. And do you think most comedians are naturally funny, or is it something that you learn as you grow into that space?
Well, we would all know people who are just funny the way they say something, like whether it's the tone in their voice or their phrasing. It doesn't matter what they say, it seems funny. And if I was to say it, you probably wouldn't think it was funny. So there are those people. But there are people who are just really clever at writing. They know the craft of a good joke. But I think all comedians, what they have is they're brave. But they're willing to put themselves on the line and deal with the consequences, whether or not they get the laughs.
You couldn't get more courage to me than standing up on your own in a room with the expectation that you're going to be entertained and make people laugh. I think that's incredibly brave. Now, one of the funniest people I know is a young Aussie comedian called Max Price. He's worked on The Footy Show, Triple M, Kinney Tonight, along with many other TV shows that unfortunately have been temporarily cancelled due to the pandemic.
Yeah, the impact of closed venues and extended lockdowns has hit the arts and entertainment industry particularly hard. So many of my great mates work in the business and, like a lot of people, have lost income and are really suffering emotionally.
Well, Max also found himself struggling, so he turned to sleep and mindfulness apps to help get him through, but he found most of them weren't really working for him. So in true Aussie style, Max decided to create his own app and invited a stack of his funniest friends along for the ride. The idea of combining comedy and meditation could only come from someone like you, Maxie. What was the idea behind it?
So it started during Melbourne's lockdown last year, the long one, and all our film work had stopped and I was struggling mentally. I had a 2-year-old and a pregnant partner and no work, and I realised I needed to do something for my brain. I tried some of the overseas apps and I put them on, and I think with a history of comedy and racing thoughts, as I listened to it, I just couldn't buy into it. And I don't know why. I knew it definitely worked for people, but for me it wasn't. And I kind of did a joke version of it, like a comedy meditation. And my partner was like, I think there's something in this.
And you open up a suitcase that you think is ski gear. But it's DVDs. Why have I still got all these DVDs?
We'd saved enough for a house deposit and we were going to buy our first house. But then with lockdown and uncertainty, this seemed to be one of the most certain ideas Leah and myself, my partner, had ever had. And we Googled app developers in Melbourne and had a few meetings, and next thing you know, we rolled the dice and put a house deposit into an app.
What could possibly go wrong, Maxie?
Lovescape is an app where we've combined comedy with mindfulness, and we have comedy sleep stories by some of Australia's best comedians.
Hi there. Andy Lee here. One half of Hamish and Andy. Some might think the less exciting half, which is perfect for what we've got to do right now together.
It's an amazing counterintuitive thing in some ways, Maxie, but I was just listening to Andy Lee's story and it had the perfect effect. It made me calm because you've captured the essence of a guided meditation, and it made me smile and it made me laugh, and we know that's a healthy thing to do. So if you can crack that code, which it seems like you have, a lot of people are going to enjoy this.
Well, that's it. And I sometimes have been associating it with early interventions of negative thoughts.
Yeah.
So I feel that in my life, a lot of that starts in bed at night if you've had a rough day, and I think the spiral can begin in bed for a lot of people. The whole premise or whole point of these comedy sleep stories is to shift the attention away from your thoughts and just focus it into these stories, and hopefully with the music and the relaxed tone, you might just nod off.
You might need to escape this meeting that you're in. Maybe it's on Zoom and you're pretending that those headphones are playing you the voice of your boss, but really it's me.
A lot of my mates are tradies, and they think that you have to go to a Bali retreat, silent retreat for 10 days or something to do meditation and mindfulness. But then I'd find out that they would drink, a six-pack of beer a night, or they'd be maybe taking something to fall asleep, and it was a pretty big problem. So this app we tried to design it to be like a stepping stone between doing nothing healthy for your brain and, meditation. Maybe this could just be the first step to not have a six-pack before going to bed or something like that.
Can you breathe out your ears? 'Cause like sometimes you do that, you'll go, like you're on a flight and you get blocked ears. Then you pinch your nose and breathe and it pops it. So you're like, well, I can breathe out my ears. Why don't we do that more often?
We've had no regrets. In fact, I think we would have had a lot more regrets if we had have got the house. We've only been, live on the App Store for 3 or 4 months, but starting to get some really overwhelmingly positive feedback from strangers that are using it. We got one message from someone who uses it in hospital when visiting hours are over. It makes the stay easier, and people that have never been able to, click with something that helps with their sleep. They've finally found that thing, and people listening to it every night and stuff, which has been crazy.
Like, when you're swimming freestyle, you just put an ear out of the water. Keep your head still.
We are back in the House of Wellness kitchen where my companion and I, Gerald, celebrate good food, good health and good times.
Slightly less good times for me today, Heinzie, but the crew and I are actually missing out on the taste testing of this magnificent food.
GQ, I don't want to rub it in, but it is quite the dish that you are missing out on today because I am celebrating cheese in all of its deliciousness in the form of my zucchini and cheese low-carb muffins. And I gotta say, mate, the cheese takes them to the next level. It's sticky, it's gooey, it's buttery, it's creamy. Everything about these muffins in every mouthful is all about cheese.
OK, Heinzie, you have made your point very, very well. Cheese goes beyond flavour, and that is providing us with the most abundant essential mineral in the human body, calcium.
Of which, mate, I just found this out. Can you believe 99% of it is found in our teeth and bones?
Exactly. Calcium is very important for the development and maintenance of healthy teeth and bones. It's certainly key in our younger years as we are growing, but it's very important in latter years as well to reduce our risk of things like osteoporosis.
Now, mate, while most people turn to dairy foods for their hit of calcium, if you're intolerant, there is no need to worry because calcium can be found in foods that you wouldn't expect, like seaweed. Aquaman is produced by red algae and contains calcium along with other minerals, and it gets these during its growth phase, absorbing it from the sea. How cool is that? It nearly puts these muffins to shame. I said nearly. Now I've got to get these in the oven.
There are other important vitamins to be considered here for healthy bones and teeth. One is vitamin D3, which is important for absorbing calcium into our body. And the other is vitamin K2, which is important in building bone mass.
It is the absolute dream team of nutrients, mate.
Too true, Hainsey, and you can also find this in supplement form in a high-strength, convenient one-a-day capsule.
Some pretty great options there, mate, to make sure our bones and teeth are going tibia okay.
Oh, Hainsey, that's so cheesy. You can do better than that, sure.
Oh, says you with the whole cheese gag. That's almost as old as you. The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy's Go Calcium One-A-Day Natural Source, a convenient one-a-day formulation to help with your calcium intake and maintain strong, healthy bones.
Hines and GQ have always got our backs when it comes to maintaining good health. Now, speaking of backs, to me, it's the thing I hear people complain about the most is having a bad back. Is that your experience?
Look, I feel really fortunate that I've never done my back, but I was away once with a friend of mine who did her back and we had to call an ambulance. She slipped a disc and the pain she was in, she was blacking out from it. So I do know that it can be extremely serious. 85% of us will have some kind of back pain in our lives. That's a lot of bad backs. Do we get back problems because, unlike our great ape cousins, we're upright and walking around on two legs? That is what evolutionary experts say. But what do our doctors, past and present, think? Here they are with the backstory.
Hi and welcome to Medicine, Past, Present and Future. My name's Dr. Nick and I'm the past.
And my name's Dr. Isabel and I'm the future.
And together we're the present.
Now I've got a question for you, Dr. Nick. What do Neanderthals, modern man, and dinosaurs have in common?
No idea.
Well, they all suffered from back pain.
Is that a joke?
Well, it's not a joke, but it does bring us to today's topic, which are those aches and pains that most of us will get at some stage in our backs.
And it's actually a really important topic because we know up to 90% of adults will get back pain at some point, and in fact, I'm one of the 90%.
So 90% is a pretty big figure. How did we used to treat back pain?
Well, you know I love the questions about history, Dr. Isabel. The earliest recorded treatment for back pain was 4,000 years ago, an Egyptian scroll which described what they did about back pain.
So what did they do about it back then?
Well, the problem is we don't know because the treatment bit of the scroll has been lost.
That is so frustrating, Dr. Nick.
It is frustrating, which actually mirrors the treatment of back pain, which can be really difficult. Now, when we think about what we used to do, there were treatments like spas and hot water treatments, which were probably quite helpful. But in Derbyshire, for instance, they had this idea in the early 1800s that if you cooked your legs over a fire of hot ferns, that would treat back pain. Coming up to more modern times, when I was a medical student, I was taught that the main treatment for back pain was bed rest, which we now know is wrong. But before we go on to treatment, Dr. Isabel, we've got a word of warning, haven't we?
Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Nick. So there are some quite serious and sinister causes of back pain. So if you have back pain that is new, getting worse, or unusual, make sure you seek treatment from a medical professional.
Yeah, really important because it's unusual, but there are some possible nasty causes. So if we come back to more everyday backache, what do we recommend as treatment now?
So the mainstay of treatment these days is threefold. We've got local treatment, general treatment, and of course, movement. So local treatment refers to the area itself. So that's things like massage, a bit of heat. General treatment refers to things like painkillers, and even some really simple painkillers can make a really big difference. And then of course, movement. So for back pain, we recommend some gentle movement like walking, swimming, or light stretching. It can do wonders for the back pain.
And what about things like x-rays and scans? How important are they?
So that's a tricky question, Dr. Nick, because if you take a scan of even, say, my spine, you're likely to see something called degeneration, which is actually just wear and tear of the bones themselves. Now, the thing that's complex is that degeneration, it doesn't necessarily correlate with where the symptoms of pain are.
So if I see a new patient who's got one of those unusual forms of back pain, I might consider doing a scan or an x-ray. But for pretty much everyone else, it doesn't change the treatment.
Now, you said you'd had some back pain, Dr. Nick. What did you do about it?
Well, I went to my doctor. She didn't order a scan or an x-ray, and you know what? She just told me I needed to do some more exercises.
So there you have it. Like we say every time on this program, exercise. It's good for your sleep, it's good for your lifestyle, and it's good for your back pain.
And it certainly worked for mine.
Thank you, Dr. Nick.
And thank you, Dr. Isabel.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hello. So is this kind of like This Is Your Life? But instead it's This Is Your Skin, starring Luke Hines?
Tegan's skincare story. So cringe.
Cetaphil, Luke Hines, House of Wellness, take 1. What blows me away is that our skin is our largest organ on our body. That's insane. It can actually spread about 20 square feet. I lived in an apartment in Bondi, smaller than that.
It's really important for me to look after my skin. I like to think of it as a little bit of a raincoat. When I go outside, it's keeping everything in and it's doing its job to protect me from those harmful elements.
You know, the average Korean woman has 12 steps in her skincare regime. 12, average 12. I know.
The skin has many major functions, but I think the main ones would be helping our body regulate temperature and hydration. It also helps to keep nasties out of our body, and these would include things like pollution, allergies, and infections, for example. When our skin's healthy, sometimes we take it for granted, but when something goes wrong, when we get an itch, when a rash appears, or it starts to affect our sleep or our lifestyle, then we think about, oh my goodness, it's actually really affecting my mental health. So looking after our skin, prevention is just as important as treating it because it helps us maintain our physical and mental well-being in general.
I've visited many skin experts in my time and every single one of them has said you have really dehydrated skin. So I do have to put a lot of extra effort in to ensure that I'm giving it that hydration throughout the day.
I think I have quite sensitive skin as a default, but I've learnt how to irritate it less and less by choosing the right products over the years and by developing good routines. So I've become a lot more attentive, probably research more deeply, and also make decisions based on my own skin rather than just copying what everyone else is doing.
Sensitive skin can be a genetic tendency or a skin type, but some people can also develop sensitive skin over time, and that's termed sensitized skin. Regardless of whether it's a tendency or something that you develop over time, the main symptoms of sensitive skin are skin dryness, flaking, roughness, the skin can feel itchy, and the main issue underlying sensitive skin is a compromised skin barrier function. The skin barrier is the brick wall of the skin, and this is made up of skin lipids, which are natural skin oils that work like glue to stick skin cells together. And this is important to trap moisture and water within the skin and also protect it from external insults so the skin remains healthy. The basic skincare routine that most dermatologists would recommend for sensitive skin would be cleansing and moisturizing.
My skincare regime has evolved over time when I realised how important hydration was. Drink lots of water, moisturise the skin, win-win.
I discovered Cetaphil's range, and it's so gentle, but it still is effective, and I used to think you'd compromise on one or the other.
I like to use good quality products, but not necessarily the most expensive ones. I've tried many products in the past, but I've found that, you know, it's often just those really trustworthy brands that have been around for years that are the ones that I tend to stick to.
When using a cleanser, choose soap-free wash because soaps can dry and irritate the skin. Follow on with moisturising because moisturising is important to replace the natural skin oils that have been stripped off in the cleansing process. Also, when you're looking for products, stick to hypoallergenic, fragrance-free, and these would include synthetic and natural fragrances, and also non-comedogenic, and that means it doesn't clog skin pores and doesn't risk acne breakouts. Let's have a look at why you're here today. Yeah. Know your own skin. My key message is if you have sensitive skin, keep it simple and consistent. Healthy skin is for life.
To celebrate Cedarfield's Skin Awareness Month, what I would like to do, and I'm committing to do, is to put aside a little bit of time each day for a skin ritual that I wouldn't normally make time for, or just an extra little step in, my regime to look after my skin and give myself a little self-care moment.
Often life and work and family and all of that get in the way, and I can go a couple of days where I don't kind of cleanse and moisturise like I'd like to. So I'm going to use this month to be mindful each morning and each night, to do my routine, to build confidence and go strong into each day. Do we cut with these things as well?
Yeah, can we end it?
All right, so let's end it. We did it. We did it in one take. You said I was a one-take wonder.
One-take wonder, Luke.
Guys, look after your skin. Hear it from me.
Luke Hines and Sarah Davidson there with some great ways for us to love the skin we're in.
Well, Joe, laughs have been a little bit hard to come by in the past year or two, but it's so good to just have a genuine laugh. It makes you feel so much better, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and I have to say it's a testament, I think, to all of our resilience that even throughout this pandemic, the memes have been flying thick and fast. Even when we had that earthquake in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, it was seconds before there were memes going out around that. And I love that about us. But I'll tell you one of my favourite things that makes me laugh.
What's that, Joe?
It's animals behaving like humans. Anytime you see, like, a cat watching telly, or a dog on a trampoline, love it.
I love the great Australian humour, even in the darkest times. And Mick Malloy, a great friend of yours and mine, always used to talk about the story of the tragic bushfires that happened, and they crossed down into the King Lake area. There's a guy standing there and he said, tragically, my house has been burnt down, but the good news is the washing's dry. That, to me, is the classic ability to have fine humour in the hardest of possible times, isn't it?
Now, when you think of Australian women's fitness, the name Michelle Bridges springs to mind. She's built an empire around helping people work on their health, especially through her 12-week body transformation. Now the fitness guru is tackling a taboo topic that affects 1 in 3 women, but few people dare to discuss.
Michelle, incontinence is notoriously a taboo topic. Why do you think that is?
It's a very personal topic, and, I find it interesting just in and of the fact that in the year 2020-21, we've pretty much discussed everything there is to discuss, right? There's not really much left on the table. But this is probably one of them that hasn't been, openly discussed because it is such a private thing and there's a lot of shame around it, which is, saddening. And yet it's of no fault of the person at all. It's just, it's what happens, whether it be just through age or whether it be through having multiple childbirth or, gosh, I know one lady that had it because she had a really, really bad pneumonia and couldn't stop coughing and then it became a problem.
Wow.
So it's sad that a lot of people, or a lot of women, and look, it happens to men too, but it's more women, they start pulling themselves out of life. They start extracting themselves out of their own world. So the ones that I have personal examples of are women that would stop coming to the gym because they were too scared of, potential accidents. And then there's incidents where they'll start pulling themselves out of social events because, again, it could turn up, when you least expect it. So their world starts shrinking. And that's the isolating and sad part about it. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
There's lots of different solutions here.
Yeah.
And I think the first one is to talk about it.
Absolutely. What initially introduced you to incontinence as an issue and then made you so interested to get involved in helping others with it?
Well, I tell you how it first started. I, some time back, got involved with women's community shelters because I'm a really big believer in looking after the women that are now finding themselves on the streets. We have 56,000 Australian women on the street every night.
Oh, my gosh.
Just get your head around that for a second. So I was involved with the women's community shelters, which was really all about women who are on the street, and they're on the street because of family or domestic violence. Their finances are, little to nothing. So, of course, they're not going to be able to even provide themselves with, something that we should all have as a bit of dignity with their own personal hygiene products. Particularly, this is the demographic of women 50 plus, that it's a growing issue. And I just felt like, this is nuts. Like, this blows my mind. This is our sisters, this is our mums, our aunts, our aunties, and we also know that through some of the research that also Always Discreet has done, that 1 in 3 women suffer from this problem. So if it's not you, it's someone you know in your circle.
And from your experience, I mean, you have trained so many women. Do you think the general public is aware enough about the importance, not just for incontinence, but for many other ailments, of pelvic floor exercises?
Look, I think we've all talked about it. Oh, do your Kegels. You can do them in the car, sitting at the traffic lights. You can do them while you're standing at the bank in line, blah, blah, blah. I think we do a lot of talk about it, but it's not really something that most people add into their repertoire. And it's probably not something, as an ex-group fitness instructor, that I would say in a class full of 30 people, okay, let's do some Kegel exercises, people. But they really are important. They really are important. And we don't talk about it enough, I suppose, really. Like, we just don't.
Michelle, what's the best way to lift awareness of incontinence and continue this conversation?
Well, it's about talking. It's about having some, what I love to call a straight conversation, where, you let your guard down and you be a little bit vulnerable, and you talk to someone about it, whether it be your girlfriend, your mum, your sister, your neighbour. It's about being okay with a problem that maybe you've been hiding and feeling shame about. And it's also about that person listening. So there's a bit of trust involved. And that's what I saw with mental health those years ago when I was working with Black Dog. It's just about a conversation and starting it.
Interesting fact, Joe, that a normal bladder holds between 400 and 600 mils of liquid and should take about 2 hours to make its way to the bladder. Did you know that?
I did not know that, Das, but I tell you, I pride myself on being able to hold on for a long time. I know.
Is that one of your great skills?
Well, you and I both did breakfast radio, so you don't often have the time during a show to go.
I used to go all the time.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was too... No, I didn't have enough time. In an ad break or a song?
Well, whenever I could get out of the... Go for a walk, come back.
I think your physiology is a little different to mine. I think that's what's going on there.
So, Joe, as you know, there's an incredible amount of studies about coffee. And here is the latest one from the University of Washington in the United States. Now, this isn't the best news, potentially. Researchers have found that the continued or increased caffeine consumption in your life impacts sleep, making you more alert initially, but in the long term, much more tired.
I feel that's obvious, isn't it? Don't we all know that? Well, I love the solution, though, because if you get that afternoon slump and even a coffee won't pull you out of it, then they say don't drink it every day, or if you can, go cold turkey for a few days and then reintroduce it into your routine.
So when I drink coffee, I don't think of it, for me, as an energy boost. I think of it as just a ritual and a routine and something that I enjoy. So I'm not overly surprised by that news either.
No, I'm not surprised by it. And when I think of coffee, I think of it as the thing that makes me much nicer to be with.
Well, that's it for today. Check out the House of Wellness website for further information on anything you've seen today on the show and much more.
You can hear me and Gerald Quigley on the House of Wellness radio show every Sunday. And don't miss the latest in my podcast series, Best of You, which covers all kinds of mental health challenges, from breaking a bad habit to navigating painful change. It's available wherever you get your podcasts.
Congratulations on the Best of You, Joe. Some of your finest work, and loving that space as well. Having some great conversations with empowering leaders. Recently caught up with a brilliant young CEO called Laura Henshaw, mentor who works in the wellness space, and Pat Cummings, the legendary Australian fast bowler, is brilliant. So really enjoying and inspired by this generation of leaders. It's fantastic.
Yes. Well, don't miss the Wellness Lift Out in the weekend papers with breast cancer survivor and singing legend Kylie Minogue on the cover.
And thanks as always to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Stay well, and we'll see you next time.